Stand, I'm gonna get dry mouth and go like this. I'm writing a young adult novel at the moment. I don't want to quote Shrek, but I'm gonna quote Shrek. I got my dream job, which is to be a curator for a TED stage. Like, should I reach out and like pat it to his chest? Hi, I'm Natalie. As of today, I'm 20. I'm Fashion Bambini's sister. Oh my god, it's the greatest honor. I'm in my 3rd year of university. I'm finishing a Bachelor of International and Global Studies. I work part-time as a tutor. I consider myself a writer. Stop going like this. I'm a writer. I've written my first novel. I'm working on it now. I have a daily blog. I think that self-promo win. What are you most passionate about? It depends. I think that what you're most passionate about changes. I'm really passionate about writing. I really love storytelling in all forms. I love film. I really like traveling. I'm weirdly passionate about basketball. I was in North Carolina in Chapel Hill last semester, so at the beginning of this year. It's a really big basketball university and it was a lot of fun. I used to be really passionate about social justice and I'm still really passionate about it, but with my degree in particular, which is learning about the world and all the problems, I've come to realize that a couple of the social justice movements and the things that I was really proud of in terms of charities and in terms of like how to lift people out of poverty is more problematic and more complex than I used to think. Most of the solutions that we have for lifting people out of poverty, for example, have economic empowerment. Okay, let's take an example. Let's do the Africa thing. If you don't send money to them, right? You give money to a charity which educates them and gives them seeds to grow up a farm and support themselves, right? However, to kind of like dilute it down, like this is a Marxist kind of interpretation of things. If you give them the means to enter the economy, you're just giving them the means to play the game that eventually kind of squishes down on other people. So if you empower one person, this is very simplistic and this is of course like not entirely right or true, but another person will suffer because of that. Because if you imagine a lot of people are trying to sell their goods in the market because they've sown all their seeds and they've made all their produce, then the price goes down and everyone is kind of worse off. So the kind of traditional ways of giving money and even economic empowerment is really problematic, and what we should really be doing is kind of readjusting and having systematic change across the board, which is really difficult because, I mean, there's the quote that history has ended, but it means that basically capitalism has won. It has since redacted that and like said it's not true anymore and there is capacity for change, but it's very difficult. And it's really difficult as a woman who's grown up in very highly educated. I'm very lucky that I get to go to university. I'm very lucky that I've had all my opportunities. It's also really difficult to kind of be a solid commentator and a critique of a system that has really benefited me. I'm writing a young adult novel at the moment. I finished the first draft. It's 80,000 words. I'm really proud of it. It's very terrible at the moment. It's really terrible. But I'm really excited about the concept and I'm excited about finishing it properly and just it's in the editing process at the moment. I'm really nervous about sending it to agents and getting it actually published because I really do want it to be traditionally published, like by the big 5 would be really nice.
What are your aspirations?
I think like I asked this question to a bunch of people when I was leaving high school and a lot of people just said that they wanted to be happy. And I think that's a really easy thing to say. I think happiness is different in terms of which stage of your life you're in. So I think like in 5 years I want to have traveled a lot and I want to be like somewhat settled, but in like, you know, 20 years, like my aspirations for 40-year-old Natalie is going to be very different and that's going to change. And I think that while you should have goals, and I do consider myself very goal orientated, obviously you should have big overarching like themes to your goals. So obviously I want to be happy, everyone wants to be happy in the future, but I think that to choose what I want to aspire to now and just work towards that would be very difficult in the long term. So I mean, like in 5 years I want to have traveled, I want to like go to Europe, I want to see my exchange friends, I want to be in a job that I enjoy or like on the path to a job that I enjoy, and of course, which again is problematic. Don't put that in there because I just had this whole thing about capitalism. Aspirations, everything and anything.
What's been the most worthwhile experience in your life?
Exchange. I think that everyone should go on exchange. I think it's a really good way of meeting new people. I think it's a really good way of pushing yourself in situations that you are not normally put in your home place. Just because I think that in your home place you have a inbuilt sense of what you should be doing, whether you run into your grandparents' friends and like whether they'll you know, judge you, and like you're just surrounded in a capsule where you're sort of dictated by other people, like what decisions you make. But I think on exchange, the person who you are comes out a bit more because you're free to do that without judgment. You're surrounded by a lot of like-minded people, and it manifests its way in a lot of strange ways. So like you might decide that you're a huge partier, or you might decide that you love studying and you are a huge academic, or you just changes the way that you dress and the way that you carry yourself. I went to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. It's in this tiny college town, which is exactly what you think the US college experience is, like big Greek life, huge sporting university, everyone living around or near campus. It's really different. You don't expect America to have a very different culture to Australia, but it really does. It's really weird, but also really interesting.
What inspires you?
It's like aspirations. I think that a lot of things inspire me. It depends on it, like all parts of things. Like I think that you can find inspiration in almost anywhere and everywhere. I mean, obviously my family, my friends inspire me. My friends inspire me to become a better person, to deserve their friendship. My family inspires me so I can deserve their love and their support. Art inspires me, books inspire me to write better and to be more creative in terms of stories. Intelligent people who have different opinions than me, they inspire me to become more convicted in my opinions and to learn more from them and be more open. I think everything sort of comes from inspiration. I'm trying harder to be like a kinder person, and I think that the world as it is, because it's kind of falling apart. I was having this conversation with my friend and we were talking about how we haven't had a world war in a while and how we're almost due, and we're both studying the same things, and she's doing law at Sydney as well. She's very intelligent, and we're both kind of worried that it's going to happen in our lifetime, which on one hand makes my degree great and on the other hand is terrifying, because there's a lot of things that are wrong and there are a lot of things that need to be fixed, and there are a lot of things that we want to fix that cannot be fixed, that are way too complex for one simple solution, and it can't happen in our lifetime. There are so many issues that will take decades and decades and centuries to solve that are affecting us right now, and so that inspires me to study harder, to find out what I'm really good at, because I think that any career that you choose or any like pathway that you kind of want to follow, that can be used for good. It doesn't matter whether you're doing law or business or if you're doing marketing or if you're doing fine arts. It's all applicable and it can make a change as long as you have the intention and are inspired, I guess, to an extent, to use your talents for good.
What do you think you're really good at, and what do you like about yourself?
Oh god, that's a really hard question. I ask this question of other people. I'm like, what's your favorite compliment? Because my favorite compliment is still, it's a really obscure one. It was from this girl in high school. We were in the same mentor, which is like we would meet every morning, and I remember I was just laughing at something and she had left the room, and then she came back and she was like, I love your laugh, you have the best laugh. And I have a really weird laugh.
What's your laugh?
Stop. And it was just really nice. It was just so nice. It was a really kind thing of her to say. I think that liking yourself is hard. I think that everyone struggles with that. And I think it's something that I certainly struggled with. I think that, I don't want to quote Shrek, but I'm going to quote Shrek. It's just like, you know, people have layers. They're like, but like, you know, so I think that it's really important to, if you want to love yourself, you need to tell yourself that you love yourself, even though you don't believe that. So I do tell myself that I love myself and that I like myself a lot, but there is also the second layer, which is just like always self-doubt and like, you know, the whole, am I deserving of this? Am I deserving of that? Am I doing enough? I like that I can cook. I mean, technically I made a croquembouche and that took like 8 hours, and that's really, really difficult.
Insert photo here.
It was ridiculous. The best tasting thing that I've cooked. Creme brulee is always really easy. Tara really likes that one. I like my friends the most, I think. My friends and the people around me the most, because I think that they're amazing people and I'm so lucky to have them in my life, and they're the best part of me. They are the best people, and I'm so lucky that they think that I deserve their love, which is really nice.
What advice do you have for people who want to follow their passions but don't know where to start, or like people aren't supportive?
I think starting is the hardest bit. Every bit is the hardest bit, but starting is really difficult. I think that just like start from where you are. A lot of advice that I've been reading lately has just been, especially with writing, it's not about who's the best, it's about who sticks on the bus for the longest. It's like the Helsinki theory or something like that. So I think just persist. If you love it, just start from the bottom. Like everyone has to start there. I think that applies for everything. Be persistent. Persistence is one of the most important things. I got my dream job, which is to be a curator for a TED stage 2 years ago, but it was like 3 years in the making. In 2000 2013, I applied and I got invited to TEDx Sydney. That was really exciting. There was only three other people my age who got in, and we're still all friends. And I went and I realized that I love TED. I love TED Talks, and I highly recommend if you can go. And I realized that's what I wanted to do. So I went to TEDx Youth at Sydney later that year in 2013, and I met someone there who was a curator, and I went up to him and I was like, how did you get your job? I love your job. I want to do your job. And he kind of laughed and was like, I applied online, and I was like, that's not helpful for me. So I left it. I would see this guy again like 3 times over the next year, and every time I would see him, because it was also really easy because he was very, very, very tall. I would go up to him and he was always kind of doing a TED thing, so he was doing a promotion, or he was just walking around, and every time I went up to him and I was like, hi, I don't know whether you remember me, but I want your job. How did you get your job? And each time he would kind of laugh and just be like, oh, I like applied for this, and again I would be like, that's not helpful to me. I kept on trying, which is like in hindsight a really stupid thing. Like I would ask him other questions. I'd be like, how are you? Like, how do you go? So the third time I saw him was at the after party of TEDx Sydney 2014, and he was like, haha, I remember you. And by this point he was like a little bit drunk because it was free alcohol. And he was like, you know who you should talk to? You should talk to Jess Scully. And Jess Scully, if you don't know her, is this amazing woman. She like pretty much runs Vivid Sydney. She does like a huge powerhouse, amazing lady. So I walked up to her and I was like, hi, I love you. How do I get your job? And she was like, well, I can't give you my job, but here's my business card. She didn't have a business card, she only had her email. So I wrote the email down, then I emailed her that day. And then she didn't reply for like 3 months, and I was like, okay, well, I'll just email her again. It was like at the end of 3 months, obviously she didn't get to it or whatever, so I sent her another email. I'm pretty sure it was like 6 months later that I finally got a reply, or I sent another email, and she was like, oh, hi, let's go get a coffee, we can chat. I went and got a coffee with her. It was really, really nice. She was like, I can't give you a job at TED. Like, you can't be a curator because, like, you know, they're actually specific people and they've had it a long time. They're very like selective of their job. But how about you can do some research for me? Like, you can be my like sort of intern, like work experience person. And I was like, sure. So I did like a couple of tasks for her. They were kind of throwaway things, and so I did them for her. It took 2 hours really. And then I sent it to her, and that was like the last I heard of her until January of 2015. She had brought me into this email chain with this lady called Anna Burns. Anna was doing TEDx Youth at Sydney 2015 at the Opera House. And Jess was like, oh, this is Natalie. She's super excited. She wants to do this job. So I had a coffee with Anna, and I thought it was like a big job interview, but we were just chatting, and by the end of it she was like, yeah, can you start? So I got my dream job of being a TEDx Youth at Sydney curator, and it was the best experience. And I've done that now I did that last year, and then I went away to America, and they were very, very kind in letting me stay and stick around for the last 2 weeks of the TEDx event this year, and hopefully I'll be a part of the event next year. If you really, really want to do it, then there's always a way to do it. Be persistent, and just because you want to do it doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to be good at it. I was not a very good curator. I worked hard and I learned a lot, and I think that the next time I do it I'll probably be better. Look for mentors, look for people who will give you time, and also ask for help, because a lot of people are they want to help you. You just need to ask for it, and you just need to accept when they don't have time, because most of the time the people that we seek out to be mentors are famous or very, very busy.
Best advice you've received?
Just because you want it doesn't mean that you're gonna get it. Which is very depressing, and it's like, it was very hard to swallow. I read it in an article because I was a finalist for this writing competition when I was in year 10, and I really wanted it. I wanted it so badly, and I didn't get it. It was another person who had won the competition who said that, and that was really, really hard to swallow at the time, but it's also something that you need to accept, because nothing really good happens easily, and you just need to work hard. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't be happy with what you get. I think that you need to be happy with yourself before you expect other people to reward you.
Tell me a funny story.
Would you like a hands down crowd, please?
That was so planned.
2 years ago, I was working for our state MP to figure out if I wanted to join the government or not. I do not. So I went to a lot of constituent meetings, which for the state MP means a lot of people complaining. So I went, and I was in charge of, I was wearing this sort of awful like business dress, and I was handing out labels to people who had RSVP'd. So this guy comes in, and I was like, oh sir, is your name on the list? So he points to it, and for a second I think he has really, really short fingers. I look closer, and it's turned out that he's been in like a chainsaw accident or something where the tops of his fingers have been chopped off, so he has like fingers that like look like this. So he points to it, and I'm like, okay. So I peel it off, I gave it to him, and he starts to stick it on his shirt, and then I realize that I made a terrible mistake because it's taking him far too long to stick on this thing, because remember, he doesn't have any fingers, so he's just trying to like hit it against his chest, and I'm freaking out, and I'm like, oh no, I've made a mistake. What should I do? Should I reach out and like pat it to his chest? Should I like call for help? Should I just like watch him while he like struggles? So then I go, sir, do you need a hand?
Don't check Nat out.
You can if you want to and if you're good looking.